Hello, I'm Sylvain Moulherat from TerrOïko, and I will present you work conducted for Téréga in the context of the regulatory monitoring linked to the building of a gas pipeline in southern France. This work concerns a 100-kilometer gas pipeline, which building started in 2014. During the project environmental impact assessment, some significant impacts have been detected on the Alcon blue, which is protected in France. The Alcon blue is a small butterfly with limited movement abilities and with complex ecology. This species needs the presence of a specific host plant for the caterpillar development, but the final stage of development arises in parasites antheils. As this species is very sensitive in the region, the Conservatoire d'Espaces Naturels de Nouvelle-Aquitaine which is an NGO, conducted opportunistic survey of the Alcon blue since decade and has been therefore mandated by Téréga to perform the regulatory monitoring during and after the pipeline building. The Alcon blue issue doesn't concern all the 100 kilometers of gas pipeline, but is concentrated around the 2-kilometer section you can see on the map in orange. Based on expert knowledge in the movement ability of the species, which is expected to be able to disperse at about 500 meters, the EIA focused on the suitable meadows included in the orange dash delineation. So the gas pipelines EIA is only focused on potential suitable habitat patches in this part of the map, and the mitigation hierarchy have been applied at this spatial scale. Applying the mitigation hierarchy at this local scale, the EIA pointed out that during the working phase, the butterfly will be directly impacted by the reduction of its suitable habitat. Just after the building, the pipeline coverage will not be a barrier for this species, and that at medium to long term, the habitat over the pipeline may constitute suitable patches for the species with the colonization or recolonization of the host plants enhanced. So these different statements led to the design of a 2-hectare offset plot here in patch 72, which is expected to ensure the no-net loss of this protected butterfly. Sorry. The EIA looks at the project's impact about 500 meters around the gas pipeline, but thanks to the Conservatoire survey, we have been able to identify a larger network of suitable habitats. In addition, we have been able to quantify their relative quality based on the knowledge of ants and host plants presence and abundance at a much larger scale. Aware of this larger scale network, Téréga in 2019 would like to evaluate on a voluntary basis if the offset works properly and how to improve its practice if needed. So they wanted TerrOïko to perform population dynamic simulation to evaluate the offset efficiency based on the first monitoring data collected on the Alcon blue in 2019. So to perform the population dynamics, we use TerrOïko, which is the commercial software issuing from the technology transfer of the research model MetaConnect developed during my PhD within the EU Scales project. This model is an aggregation of population models running in patches of species suitable habitat, which are linked by specially explicit dispersal models. The model is an agent-based model where each individual of the simulated metapopulation has its own behavior depending on its life history traits in interaction with other individuals and the land cover. So for this project, we use the land cover map of the site as the first model input, and set up the species life cycle based on the literature review, and the dispersal algorithm used was the stochastic movement simulator. Then after 50 simulation time steps and 100 repetition of the simulation, TerrOïko provides the population dynamics per patch of suitable habitats, the dynamic of the exchanges between patches, and the movement map. To evaluate the effect of the different project phases, we build scenarios of land covers. So the first scenario, 0, used as a reference, just represent the Alcon-Blue metapopulation functioning before the project development. So you can see in green the suitable habitat patches. Then in scenario 1, working phase, we assume a 18-meter large ditch buried along the gas pipeline, in orange here. Then for scenario 2, the offset, we assume that the gas pipeline is buried and measures 6 meters large, covered by meadows, and the offset in dark green is assumed to be down. And for the last scenario, recolonization, we assume that the habitat comes back to its initial state, and that plants and ants recolonize some part of the gas pipeline. For each scenario, we measure the population size, the flow of individual, and adapted the PC connectivity metrics for asymmetry in flows developed by Soret et al. In 2007. We also work at 2 different scales. The local scales, which is the one used during the EIA, you can see in orange here, and what we call the sub-regional scale, where we consider all the potential suitable patch provided by the conservatory. So if we look at the results obtained at the local scale, we can see that, as expected, during the working phase, the population size decreases, as well as the number of exchanges between patches, and therefore the connectivity metric PC. The offset allows for a gain in population size, which also contributes to a slight improvement of exchanges and connectivity without completely reaching the functionality before the project building. And finally, with the expected recolonization, the number of individuals is close to the reference, as well as the number of exchanges is higher than previous to the project building, and finally the global connectivity is close to the initial state. So at that scale, we can conclude that the offset allows for ensuring the non-net loss for the Alcon-Blue. But now, looking at the sub-regional scale, conclusion may be different. Indeed, we can see that the population size crashed after the working phase, then increased after the offset implementation, then the natural recolonization, but without reaching the initial state. In the same vein, the global flow of individuals fall down during the working phase and only slightly increase for the last 2 phases. As a consequence, the connectivity metric PC exhibits a similar pattern among the 4 scenarios. So at that stage, we should conclude that at the sub-regional scale, the equivalence is not reached and the offset is not sufficient enough to ensure the non-net loss of Alcon-Blue. If we look in deeper details what is happening between the simulation, we can see that only patch 72 was considered in the EIA, but the simulation results show that some impacts may occur up to 3 kilometers and thus haven't been considered in the EIA. In contrast, the offset effect in green have a significant gain only on patch 72. This lack of spatial overlapping between the impact and the restoration is explaining the loss of individuals. Now, if we look at the result concerning the flow of individuals, we can see in figure A the effect of the working phase, where blue links occurs where the pipeline opened the forest in the southeastern part of the network, while strong impact can be seen in red in the northwestern part. Then what we can see in figure B is that the offset implementation only strengthens some links in the surrounding of patch 72, and then in figure C that the recolonization process confirmed this pattern without significantly restoring the flow of individual in the northwestern part. So finally, panel D shows the final difference between the recolonization scenario and the reference state. And we can see that if the southeastern part of the network benefits from slight improvements of the flow of individuals, the southwestern one shows a significant loss. So unfortunately, most of the impacts occurred outside of the EIA study area due to the complex cascading effects in the network's functioning, and these unexpected effects finally may lead to a net loss of blue outcome. As a conclusion, we thus could say that the EIA has been adequately performed based on traditional standard. The gas pipeline can constitute corridors for outcome blue and therefore probably numerous open habitat-dependent species. But most impacts occurred outside of the EIA study area, and the offset gains do not overlap the impact. So to finally avoid this kind of problem in the future, we propose to perform sub-regional ecological modeling, then based on the modeling results to adapt the EIA study area. Once the fieldwork is done to enrich the ecological modeling with the fieldwork results, then it is possible to perform scenario of mitigation measures in order to have an idea of their efficiency and finally monitor what is really happening on the field to be able to rectify the modeling results and adopt corrective measures if needed. Thanks for listening.
So Sylvain, are you ready for some questions? Okay. Any questions for him? Yes.
Hello, I'm Anne-Marie from Denmark. Did you expect this pattern you saw? Because sometimes when you do things like this, you expect that you change things and then the population fall and then they grow up again. So was this expected, this result?
I think in this specific case, we won't be able to see it, just because it's a problem of monitoring. Because to date, the project has been monitored for 5 years, and the problem is that the monitoring has been designed thanks to the EIA outcomes. So I would say the standardized and fine monitoring fieldwork is done only on the patch where the offset has been done. So to date, without any additional I would say fieldwork or corrective measure, we won't be able to be sure that what we predict with the model will be what is really happening. And that's why I said in the last slide that monitoring is really important to check whether our predictions are right or not by the end. So unfortunately, we operate after the EIA and after the building phase. So we haven't been able to say to the infrastructure manager, you should have a look in a larger scale than what you initially planned and design the monitoring system in line with this scaling issue. So to date, I don't know. I must temper a bit the things because I think during the last INE I present results with this modeling system on butterflies, and I have very good linked between what I simulate and with the genetic data. So I have some good expectation that it can be the case, but cannot be sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Yes, here we are.
Yeah, this just a short question. I wonder if you had clues about seasonal variations between different years in the Model 2, or you thought that it's going to be quite similar every year. Could you do that in your model?
Sorry, could you repeat the beginning?
Yeah, because
I think I missed something.
But yeah, because it can sometimes be really large seasonal differences for butterflies. So how did you treat that in the model?
Okay, sorry. In the model, it is integrated, has stochastic processes. So it is somehow embedded in the repetition of the whole simulation. So in the model, in that case, we simulated 50 years of dynamics and repeated this 50 years 100 times. And all the demographic processes are stochastic in the model. So rather than only using the mean values of each life history traits, we use distributions. So every year we have different values for every fecundity event and so on. And here it's the simplest way of integrating it, but in the model we can also say that this year, okay, you can use this distribution, but it's comprised between this value and change a bit the basis of the distribution.
I think that we'll leave it there. Thanks. Thank you very much, Sylvain.